This game week feels like one of the most important ones we've had all season, so I've made you a complete guide to game week 32 to help you out. We're looking at chip strategy, wildcard drafts, top 5 captains for game week 32, as well as a forward comparison and a full segment on your questions you've sent in for today's video. So, let's get into this. Welcome back to the FPL Mogs YouTube channel and welcome to today's complete guide video for FPL Game Week 32. If you're brand new around here, click subscribe and don't forget to like the video as well. It's going to take you 2 seconds to do and it's one of the best ways to support my small FPL channel. Let's aim for 15 likes on today's video. We're straight into things with my chip strategy and wildcard team selection currently for Game Week 32. I think this is maybe the best way to start the video because everyone's got a few chips they've got to use, and there's a few different combinations you can go for in the next few game weeks. This is how I'm dealing with things, and I'm going to show you some of the teams that I'm going to end up with in each game week here as we go through. A bit of context around my chip strategy though. In game week 26, I used my triple captain on Gabriel when he had his double game week, and it failed. It did not go as well as we all expected, so that chip is gone. If I still had my triple captain, which I know a lot of you guys at home still do, game week 36 seems like the prime target game week to use that chip, and we'll show you the fixture that could potentially be confirmed in the next few weeks or so of FPL. We've got Brentford and Crystal Palace for Manchester City, Erling Haaland, Semenyo. This feels like the right time to use the triple captain chip. Don't waste it like me in game week 26. I think that's the most optimal time and week to use it on those players. The rest of the chips, though, I still have. For the second half of the season, I haven't used any other chip but the triple captain. So wildcard in 32, what does that do for me? Well, it sets me up massively for game week 33, which is a big double game week for a lot of good quality teams. And of course, let's have a quick look. As I discussed in yesterday's video, this is how I would set up, and I'm currently set up for a wildcard draft in game week 32. You'll notice that there are some players with Night Manager's logos in their top left box. This is because the founder of Night Managers gave me some picks to include in the video. They currently have a manager sat at 5th in the entire world at FPL. He uses the algorithm every single week. If you do want to jump on their service, there's a 2 free-week trial right now with the link in the description. Click it, use code FPLMogs at checkout, and you could get recommendations like he does every single week. And we've included some of them in this wildcard draft. The likes of Van Heck, Verbruggen, Semenyo, Haaland, Palmer, Tavernier, even Statch on the bench, even though he's currently injured, is flagging up by their algorithm. I think it's a really nice team. There are some slight things I maybe could consider changing though, and I discussed it a little bit in yesterday's video, but Welbeck to Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Statch to Pascal Gross, or Jack Hinchelwood actually, seems like kind of the vibe I'm looking at. I do really like Welbeck, but I think Calvert-Lewin has just a little bit better of a double in 33. We'll just take a look at that now so you can see it on your screen. Of course, here, Leeds in 33 have Wolves at home, then Bournemouth away, whereas Brighton have Spurs away and Chelsea at home. From an attacking standpoint, I think Calvert-Lewin just about beats Welbeck in that battle, but it is a bit of a tough one to call right now, but I think this is currently how I'm still set up. No changes as of yet, and I'm going to have a segment later in the video comparing Calvert-Lewin and Danny Welbeck, so make sure you stay watching for that. Wildcard 32, of course, as I mentioned, sets me up perfectly in 33 for a bench boost, and this is how the team would look. Absolutely insane. 14 out of my 15-man squad all have double game weeks. It's only Bruno Fernandes we keep in wildcards at 32 who has the single game week in 33. It just looks like a really strong squad. And the real problem with game week 32 wildcards, and I will mention this because not a lot of people are saying sort of the downsides to this strategy, but it doesn't look that strong. In reality, it really doesn't. It's only the likes of, you know, the double Brighton defence. Semenyo's quite good. Haaland, of course. Bruno Fernandes, captain. Welbeck as well. everyone else, the likes of the Chelsea boys and maybe O'Reilly as well, they don't feel as strong this week, and especially the Bournemouth lads, the fixtures aren't quite there. So if your team's looking weaker on 32 wildcard than it does as normal, that's you might be losing out on a few points. That's why, though, in game week 33, you're expecting to have a lot of double game week players to catch up on that deficit. And I think it will score much more than that deficit, which is why I'm using it as my strategy going forward in FPL. Of course, though, with that massive double game week in 33 and having 14 of players out of my 15-man squad all doubling, we then go into game week 34, where I'm going to have to use my my free hit chip. If we go back just to see the magnitude of the amount of blanks I would have, everyone who has a double game week on your screen right now won't have a fixture in game week 34. So Bruno Fernandes would be my single player I have in game week 34. So if I didn't have a free hit, I'd be well and truly screwed on the strategy and I'd have to completely change everything. But of course, this is a bit early, I think, to think of a free hit draft in 34, but this is roughly what I've had for a few weeks now, just off fixtures alone. Of course, we have a few flagged players here. I'm a Sunderland fan, so I know Robin Roofs will be okay for this weekend's game, and most likely Forrest if he doesn't get injured again. Saka, we just don't know right now. I just think it's a decent enough team to field for game week 34. I don't want to spend too much time on it because it could completely change by the time the deadline rolls around. But this is the chip strategy we're going for. Of course, now the focus is on game week 32, and this is my game week 32 wildcard that I've currently chosen to stay on. A few changes may come to it though. There's a lot of talk about cheap forwards this game week, and I think I found the best two ones, and a lot of people on Wildcard are choosing one of these two players, and a lot of people have transferred in these two players as well for game week 32. Now, I want to say currently I'm on Danny Welbeck in my Wildcard 32 draft, but I may have just convinced myself as I've done my first draft of this section to move back to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and we're going to talk about it here and break it down. We've got the fixtures, we've got the data, we've got their shots on target for the season and their XG. Let's start off with the fixture comparison. Dominic Calvert-Lewin this week in game week 32 clearly has the weaker fixture. Manchester United away compared to Danny Welbeck's Burnley away from home. Welbeck wins this one out. But it's when we get to the double game week which really convinces me that Calvert-Lewin could be that better option. Of course, both on penalties, but Wolves at home, Bournemouth away for Dominic Calvert-Lewin just feels better than Spurs away and Chelsea at home for Danny Welbeck. I think Danny Welbeck has that bit more quality about him, and I think he deserves an England place, which is why I'm wearing my England shirt today. But I still think Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Wolves at home, Bournemouth away, just feels like a great opportunity for a double game week. Danny Welbeck loses this one out. Of course, they're both blank, in game week 34. It's then these back three fixtures, which I think Calvert-Lewin just about edges. Burnley at home, Spurs away, Brighton at home. I think the only thing that's maybe a downside here is Spurs. We just don't know what they're going to look like in a few weeks' time. Could they be immediately better? Could they be defensively sound by that point? I have my doubts, of course. I think De Zerbi just needs to survive, but that is a bit of an unknown fixture, whereas we know that Burnley at home fixture for Calvert-Lewin is going to be extremely good in game week 35. For Danny Welbeck, Newcastle away, Wolves at home is definitely up there as one of the best fixtures he can have. I think Burnley at home is alongside it. And then Leeds away, I think, is actually quite a difficult fixture to end the season with. Of course, they still have one more game after game week 37. But within this graphic, I mean, we get to the data. I think there's pretty much nothing in between them here. Of course, we know Calvert-Lewin has a lot more shots, has more XG in total, is a bit more of a poacher, I would say, within the box compared to Danny Welbeck. I mean, you can see on his graphic here, he's shot from the halfway line, apparently, which is a bit insane. But yeah, I think talking through this discussion for you guys at home on who to transfer in, who to have on Wildcard this week, I've slowly convinced myself that Dominic Calvert-Lewin actually might be the better option than Danny Welbeck? Could it be the case that I go back to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, sell Welbeck, and then possibly in the midfield, instead of having Statch, go to a Brighton midfielder who is a differential? Pascal Gross, Jack Hinchelwood, maybe some more out there shouts like Minte, and maybe even Gomez. We'll have to wait and see, but Calvert-Lewin has definitely caught my eye. Moving into the top 5 captains for game week 32, there is of course a clear winner. He was in the thumbnail. It's Bruno Fernandes. If you've watched the channel before, you'll know how much I glaze him every single week, so I'll try to keep it to a minimum. I just think he's by far the standout option. I don't think Haaland's that far away from him, but that home fixture at Leeds really does put him ahead of the game. I think if you don't have Bruno Fernandes, my honest opinion is you should probably just default to Erling Haaland, but there are some interesting differential options you could consider if you're chase and rank and just don't fancy the top 2 on this list. I think Welbeck at 3rd isn't too bad. I think the main motivator for him in game week 32 will be the England call-up, not being there with the squad, being a bit disappointed by it, going to a Burnley away, improving a point why he should have that England shirt and why he should be going to the World Cup. I think that's a big motivator for him for the rest of the season now, and I just think the fixture's really great. Of course, away from home, not as good, but still, Burnley, they're really, really bad in the Premier League. I can see Brighton putting a few past them, and Danny Welbeck should be involved within that process. The only downside, I think, to Danny Welbeck, as we discussed in the previous section, is not a lot of people will have the opportunity to captain him this week. I think Calvert-Lewin is probably the standout option from the cheap forwards, but if you do have him, maybe there's some consideration there if you're massively chasing in your mini leagues and you just don't think Bruno Fernandes is going to click at home to Leeds. The next 2 on the list, I actually don't think I would recommend too heavily as captains, but if you're looking just for a bit of fun, you don't play FPL too seriously, I think Bowen's up there with the Wolves at home fixture. Cunha as well, as we spoke about Bruno Fernandes, that Leeds at home fixture is really good, and he has stepped up his game in recent weeks for Manchester United as well, looking slightly better than Bryan Mbeumo actually, in my opinion. But the bottom 2 here, as you can see, their data is just not my cup of tea. It just doesn't give you too much hope, but maybe the fixtures boost them up just a little bit with their opponent's expected goals conceded. For me, it's really the top 2 you should be looking at this week. I don't think it needs to be complicated too much. Bruno Fernandes for me is a clear number 1. Erling Haaland, if you don't want to go Bruno Fernandes or you just don't have him for whatever reason, should probably be the default second option. A bit of a new segment to the channel here. We're doing a subscriber Q&A section, and we've got our first question on TikTok here from Moggy. It's a great question about having no bench boost for 33, and does it really change your wildcard in 32? So he's activated it for 32. He's got a free hit left, but no bench boost. He says, is it worth keeping the team same for wildcard 32, like the video I showed yesterday? Of course, we've seen the wildcard draft at the start of the video and in yesterday's video, but I think it's good to go back here and kind of show you an example of why it should be ever so slightly different and your strategy should be different as well. Let's just start things off with a reality check with wildcard 32. The defense isn't strong, and I think that's where you can benefit from making some changes to your wildcard draft. So I think going from someone like Senesi to a Gabriel, and of course playing him in this week instead of maybe one of the weaker players like a Bournemouth defender like Hill, instantly improves the side. Instantly improves it. Of course, there are other little single game week players in 33 you could go for, but I think this is the main one I would focus on here, because if we go to game week 33, we can see even without a bench boost, we can start to filter in these double game week players and bench some of the single week players. I still think this is a really strong team. I think you can get really, really close, if not beat that 100-point mark without the bench boost activated. And of course, having the single game week players, you can just throw them on the bench and it will make your game week 32 side that little bit stronger, especially within the back line, because I think that's the biggest drawback to wildcard 32, not having that strong clean sheet potential in the defense. And I think Gabriel would give you that. So that is how I would answer that question for Moggy on TikTok. And lastly, we've got Yassir's team here, and he has really sent in his team to be reviewed. He only has his free hit and bench boost left, so no wildcard active for game week 32, as you can see on that left-hand side here. He's saying, how should I play this, as I don't have many double game week players for game week 33, but I'm planning on getting Semenyo and O'Reilly for Timber and Bruno next week for more double game week players to bench boost and then free hit. I think the strategy is very similar to mine, apart from not having wildcard, which I know a lot of you at home have already activated your wildcard and are looking to do a similar process to Yassir here. Now, his suggestion of selling Timber and Bruno Fernandes, I think is a bit too much. In his original draft, he of course has Anthony Gordon, and I think that's the player I would look to sell. What we can do with this draft, because we have the money, is go Timber to O'Reilly and then instead Gordon to Semenyo. I think that improves the squad greatly, and of course I think Bruno should be a player that stays in your team for the remainder of the season. The fixtures are good, he's always a great captaincy option, and even when Haaland's a great captaincy option, Bruno can be that differential option as well. So I think having no wildcard in 32 is not a problem whatsoever. Making moves like this is really smart. I think you just have to be careful with some of the players you are selling, because we don't have many transfers now till the end of the season. We have to use them wisely, and I think this is a really great example of that. Having no wildcard in 32, but still taking advantage of the current chips you have left for the rest of the FPL season. Tomorrow is the FPL deadline, and I will be doing a deadline stream starting roughly around 5 PM after I've finished work, so make sure you're looking out for that. Of course, if you enjoyed this video though, make sure you've dropped a like, and if you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and click that sub button for future FPL content and FPL streams. But that is everything for today's video. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.